Atlantic City. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, Sully, how are you today?
Pretty good, man. You on your way to the South Jersey shootout?
No, actually going out to Cedar Creek today to take in Delsea versus Cedar Creek. 1 o'clock kickoff out there in Egg Harbor City. Cedar Creek, the defending South Jersey Group 2 champion against Delsea, which has won 4 straight South Jersey Group 3 titles. So it's kind of a meeting of powers out there in Egg Harbor City today.
I thought you were all about cross country, no?
I am. I do love the cross country on Saturday. The South Jersey shootout, kind of a unique format, a fun race where you kind of have one race for the number 5, 6, and 7 runners on the team, and then the 3, 4 runners have another race, and then they have that studs race for the number 1 and 2 runners on each team. We'll have those results in the paper tomorrow and online later today, but today's a football day headed to Egg Harbor City with a big game out there, and of course another big game out in Hamilton with Holy Spirit and St. Joe renewing their rivalry out there in Hamilton today also.
Definitely a huge slate of high school football, and something that Mark Tribble of the Courier Post mentioned. He had Kyle Dobbins' mom kind of lobbying for the post-game award there, and one of the neat aspects of being a high school sports reporter, what I've seen over the last couple of years, and what I'm doing, and what guys like yourself and Kevin do is, man, people really get into it. And that's such a great feeling to know that everybody's into what you're doing. They're reading what you write. They're following you on Twitter. I mean, it's such a neat kind of job, and I know you've been doing it for so long. Just talk for a few minutes about the joy you get out of what you've been doing for so long.
Well, my analogy about it and the way people follow high school sports is, and what it's different from pro sports, where you might have a bigger audience in pro sports, but in high school sports, for example, at last night, the St. Augustine Williamstown game, out that game, St. Augustine wins 48-10. 99% of the people who played in that game or were at that game or know somebody in that game read every story and watched every video today that was about that game. And that's how much invested the audience is. I always say that covering high school sports is kind of like being in a great cult rock and roll band when it first starts out. I mean, you're guaranteed a passionate audience, everywhere you go. So the audience might not be as big as it is for, the Eagles or something like that, but the audience for high school sports is invested, and that's, what I always say to people when you're covering it, it's almost like you're playing in a great cult, rock and roll band that's starting out where people kind of live and die for you on a daily basis.
Well, I know one of the big games today, you had noon Holy Spirit at St. Joe, and talk about this rivalry a little bit. It goes back a long way, and there's some links on the coaching staff. Coach Walsh has coached against Coach Sacco for a number of years, and I know Holy Spirit's really seeing this as an opportunity to say, hey, what you saw in the playoffs last year was only a taste of what's to come for this team.
Yeah, absolutely. These two teams, first of all, excuse me, these teams, St. Joe leads the rivalry 11-5. They started playing in about 2000, and their games quickly became sort of the highlights of the Cape Atlantic League. Their games decided Cape Atlantic League championships. They met in the playoffs. They're both in state non-public, too, so today could be the first of 2 meetings between the two of them this season. They're in different West Jersey Football League divisions this season, but I think you hit on it there. I think it's a real sort of proving game to see what Holy Spirit has this season. Of course, St. Joe is 2-0. Coach Sacco gets career win number 300. They won 7 last week. They won 7 straight state titles. They're number 5 in the press lead letter. We know about St. Joe, but we don't know yet about Holy Spirit. It's the second year out there now for Coach A.J. Russo. Bill Walsh, as you mentioned, is one of his top assistants. Bill Walsh, of course, was the head coach when Holy Spirit was a power back in 2007, 2008. Holy Spirit returns a ton of players from last season's 4-16. They played St. Joe in the playoffs last year. They played great defensively. They lost 13-0. They just couldn't find a way to move the football and score. But, last week, if you played the comparative score game, last week, Holy Spirit goes down the middle, Township. They win that game 34-0. Mike Costabile throws 3 touchdown passes to Dan Tarsitano. And then Middle Township turns around and beats Mainland Regional up to kind of a game most people would probably consider an upset last night. So that gives the Holy Spirit win even more credibility. So, like you said, I think today's game is we're going to find out a little bit about the Holy Spirit football team, what they have for this season, and I think the Spartans are looking at it like that.
Talking with Mike McGarry of the Press of Atlantic City. Mike, talk about middle a little bit. Cole and I were talking about this earlier in the show about how sometimes you get a team where you have a big group of juniors or seniors, and I know they have a nice group of veteran players who got some experience last year at the varsity level, and now they're ready to make that jump. Is this a team we should be looking out for over the next couple of weeks?
Well, I think definitely. I mean, I think, it's funny about the football season, whether it be pro, college, or high school. The football season gets late early. You don't want to be 0-2 a situation. So there's Middle coming off a 34-0 loss to Holy Spirit. They've got Mainland coming to town. They win that game last night. They get a great performance from running back Sean Scott. I think he ran for 175, 180 yards, scores 3 touchdowns. Now Middle Township is 1-1. They're a team to watch. And now next week they go play Buena Regional, another 1-1 team. And that's a big game in week 3. One of those teams is going to be 2-1 and on their way, a big boost to the South Jersey playoffs. The other team's going to be 1-2 and kind of forced to scramble a little bit. So Middle Township, with their win last night, sort of put themselves in position to sort of do some things this season. And also, if you look at the Middle Township schedule, it was kind of top-heavy. Their top 3 games, their big 3 games, were probably early in the season. Holy Spirit, Mainland, Buena. After that, the schedule takes a step down a little bit. So Middle Township with an opportunity to kind of step forward and have one of their better seasons in recent years.
Mike, how much of a player can Oakcrest be in the West Jersey Football Independence Division? Right now they're undefeated at 2-0. Cedar Creek's also undefeated, I believe St. Joe. Can they kind of hang with those teams throughout the course of the season? We know what they have on offense with Kendall Elliott and Yair Hinton, and they really showed a lot defensively last night against Buena, really shutting them down except for one play.
Yeah, I think Oakcrest, I was just thinking about them before you guys called. I mean, they're 2-0 and they go into Mainland next week, and that's a big game for them. Obviously it's a big game because Mainland coach Chuck Smith used to coach at Oakcrest, so he knows all those players on the other side of the field. They know him, so it's kind of got that intrigue there. But Coach Eric Anderson, the new Oakcrest coach, has done a great job. The Falcons are up to a 2-0 start. That division is a tough division. Let's face facts. It's got St. Joe, 7 straight state titles in it. It's got Cedar Creek, the defending South Jersey Group 2 champion, and it's the number 4 and 5 teams in the Press Elite 11. So that's a tough division. But Oakcrest has quickly established themselves as a playoff contender and maybe a little bit of an underrated team. I mean, they've got a 4-year starter at quarterback in Kendall Elliott. They've got Yair Hinton at linebacker. I think he's one of the better defensive players in South Jersey, kind of an underrated player. And they've got the explosive Yasin McKee at wide receiver and running back and defensive back. And we saw what he did last week against Ocean City. I think he scored 3 touchdowns in that game. So they've got some players out there, and they've got a chance to go to 3-0. But that division is so tough. They've got to sort of get every win they can because the schedule is tough with games against Cedar Creek and St. Joe on the horizon.
Talking with Mike McGarry of the Press of Atlantic City. Mike, let's dive into Cedar Creek Delsea, 1 o'clock today in Egg Harbor City. What's your take on that game?
Well, I think it's almost a battle of wills, really. I mean, I think you've got Cedar Creek, which, I kind of wrote about in Friday's press, and you can still get the story at pressofac.com, kind of previewing the game. It seems like Cedar Creek's got a big game every week. They open with inter-district rival Absegami on Friday. Now they've got Delsea today. They've got Camden next week. They've got Haddonfield, St. Joe down the road. So it looks like Cedar Creek has a big game every week. And obviously we know about Cedar Creek, the explosive skill position players, Bo Melton at running back going to Rutgers, Jesse Mills that threw 4 touchdown passes last week, Owen Bowles on the offensive and defensive lines, verbally committed to Rutgers. And then you've got Delsea coming in, kind of a wounded Delsea team coming off a big loss to Timber Creek last Friday. And, everybody knows what Delsea wants to do. They want to go in there. They want to be physical. They want to establish the run. And I think it's going to be, just a question of, can Delsea establish that run? Can Cedar Creek stop them? That's going to decide the game right there. But it's a tremendous matchup between 2 top programs in South Jersey.
Good stuff, Mike. As always, I'll see you out there at 1 o'clock in Egg Harbor City. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, bud.
I will be out there. See you later, Sully. Thanks for
All right, man. Thanks, Mike.
See you. Bye-bye.
That was Mike McGarry, the press of Atlantic City.